Oh, happy anniversary to the greatest Prime Minister of all time. 2 years in the job as Prime Minister after winning the federal election in 2021. And, I mean, the country's never been better, right? I mean, every single promise that was made has come true. I mean, this is the most transparent government ever. This is the government that, remember, it promised to lower the cost of living. Oh, that's right. None of all those things have actually taken place. In fact, many of it has got worse. And it's not just our hunch. The latest opinion polls, even coming from the sources that would be most sympathetic to this government, are telling us where the majority of people are, and it's not a slim majority. According to the Essential poll, which pops up in the Brisbane Times, otherwise known as The Guardian, 68% of people say that inflation has increased in the past 12 months. 65% of people say that their interest rates have increased in the past 12 months. And 55% of people have said that government debt has increased. Now, all of those things are facts. I'm not entirely sure why it's not 100%, but still, 70% of people feel that inflation is worse in the second year of this government, even worse than the massive increase in the first year, let alone the interest rate pain and squeeze which is taking place as we speak. But just 1 week ago tonight, the federal budget was handed down by Jim Chalmers. The theatrics were that every Labor MP was giving a standing ovation. This is amazing, we've fixed everything. With too little, too late tax cuts and $25 a month that you won't see on your power bill. So again, is it just the cynical, jaded mind of a bearded bloke on Sky News that cannot see the genius of this budget? Well, no. Same poll, same people. Just 27% of people believe that this budget will have a meaningful impact on cost of living. 7 out of 10 don't. Because 7 out of 10 know that $36 a week when it comes to tax cuts, it doesn't even begin to touch the middle, let alone the sides. And $75 a quarter or $25 a month is hardly going to actually change the world when it comes to power bills. And remember, straight after the speech took place, one of the first things to come out of my mouth and the 5 things that I noticed about the budget, which feels like a long time ago, but it was 1 week ago tonight, 1 week ago, was in service of the slogan of every household power and every worker tax cut. The reality was when it comes to the tax cut, it's not going to be enough. It's too little too late. And when it comes to the power bills, every household includes mansions. The mansions in the capital cities or some of the most cashed up people amongst us. The argument at the time apparently was that means testing was unnecessary because everyone on the income spectrum is feeling issues when it comes to cost of living. Then it came out 2 days later. The reality was it was too expensive to means test it. Well, guess what? Again, the vast majority of Australians think about the budget, which is just 1 week old tonight, and the idea that the power bills in mansions are being treated the same as people in housing commission. 60% say the policy is wrong and it should be redirected specifically to low and middle income homes. These, by the way, the low and middle income homes, are the same people who 12 months ago in the budget had $1,500 torn out of their hot little hands as an automatic tax return. So this government is not focusing on what they say it does. 2 years in, the gaping chasm between their promises at an election, let alone their rhetoric as a government. And can I commend, strongly commend, Chris Kenny for going chapter and verse through all the lies, all of the obfuscation of the past 2 years. I'll be posting that up on our socials, but otherwise go look for it at skynews.com.au. Sensational editorial. All the others were great as well, but Chris's on this particular topic really stood out to me. Now, of course, when it comes to interest rates, remember that was all the Reserve Bank's fault, and that's only that evil Philip Lowe, who's been sacked a long time ago, only to be replaced by his deputy who actually increased rates as well. But all of the reason that interest rates are going up is nothing to do with domestic affairs. It's all to do with Ukraine or Gaza. Well, guess what? Even in the Sydney Morning Herald, The Age and the Brisbane Times, 52% of people say that interest rates are mainly about domestic factors in Australia. 66% of coalition voters know it. more than half of other voters and even 36% of Labor people know the government isn't telling the truth about why interest rates keep going up. Oh, it's international factors. It's here. And who's in charge of the economy here? Old mate Albo with his Albonomics, which means bugger all tax cut for you, but a brand new private plane for him and another one for his ministers. $400 million on private jets. Oh, and of course, people living in the ritziest suburbs of all, they can get a power bill cut that they won't notice. Now, of course, in reply, Peter Dutton, I think, was able to change the subject very quickly, just 2 days after the budget. Again, this is all just last week. I know it all feels like a month ago, but it was 1 week ago. And Peter Dutton made it very clear about what he believed to be some of the great problems of the country. Well, guess what? The ABC and its fact checkers were sent out with a job, and that was to prove that Peter Dutton was lying, that the Aussie version of Donald Trump was race baiting, and their so-called fact check organisation was sent off to run the ruler over statements like this.
More than 16,000 businesses around the country have gone insolvent since the 1st of July 2022. Behind each of those is a family who may have lost their home but certainly have lost their savings.
And they found that he was telling the truth. At the time, insolvency figures were released by the Australian Securities and Investment Commission. They showed that there was indeed a threefold increase in the number of manufacturing insolvencies in the first 6 months. Well, then, of course, Peter Dutton talked about health. He was a former health minister, and he talked about some of the great problems happening there as well.
People's health and well-being are suffering. Indeed, when I became Health Minister in 2013, we inherited a bulk billing rate from Labor of 73% and increased it to 84%. When we left government, bulk billing was 88.5%. What Labor tried to hide in its budget, and a figure that wasn't mentioned by the Treasurer, is that bulk billing has decreased under Labor to 77%, an 11% drop. Always look at what Labor does, not what they say they will do.
Well, knock me down with a feather. The Leader of the Opposition, the alternative Prime Minister, was telling a dirty, great, big truth. Fact-checking again from the ABC. The latest data released last week, shows that in the year of March to 2024, 77% of GPs were bulk billing. It was 85% when Labor became the government 2 years ago tonight. And what about inflation?
On comparative inflation, Australia is worse than the US, Singapore, Germany, Spain, Japan, the Netherlands, Italy, South Korea, Canada, France and the entire euro area.
You can imagine the streamers that were going off when the fact-checkers were able to find it was yet again the truth. In quarterly data for March 2024 shows Australia's headline inflation rate is 3.6%. Over the preceding 12 months. It is indeed above that of the OECD economies that Mr Dutton mentioned. Oh, I'm not finished. And then when it came to power bills.
Electricity bills haven't gone down by $275, as was pledged on 97 occasions. They've skyrocketed.
Now, you and I know this to be the absolute fact. You and I know this to be the truth. However, the fact-checkers say they can't rule on this one because the pledge from Labor is about 2025, and it's not 2025 yet. But even then, remember, the Treasurer has already openly said the 275 promise, which, by the way, would be the permanent change to your bills, not just sugar hit of the $300, which they're going to pump out between now and the next federal election, in massive $75 a quarter or $25 a month increments. I mean, thank goodness. The Treasurer, of course, has turned around and said, yeah, that promise doesn't really count anymore.
The number you're referring to was a forecast in 21 about an outcome in 25. We're providing energy bill relief in the here and now. We did in the last budget. We are again in the next budget, but there'll be more relief for more people in this budget.
Extraordinary, truly extraordinary. It was 1 week ago. 1 week ago. Feels like 3 weeks and maybe even longer. That's why it's worth actually following what the people end up saying, what the pundits end up saying, and even what the fact-checkers have been able to see here. Notice they didn't do that for the budget, though. Wonder why.